purpose of this public hearing is to accept comments on the official record regarding a plan to address contamination at the former Hamilton Standard Controls Facility located at 147 Plymouth Street in Lexington. It's currently owned by Lexington Properties Incorporated, United Technologies Corporation. The plan recommends using soil vapor extraction to remove soil vapors, air sparging to clean groundwater and institutional controls, including the prohibition of the use of groundwater under and down gradient of the property. For potable uses, limiting future use of the property to commercial or industrial activities and prohibiting occupancy of any facility buildings. Associated soil and groundwater monitoring will continue. Ohio EPA published a public notice to announce the hearing and public comment period regarding the application in newspapers in the area. This notice was issued in Ohio EPA's Weekly Review, which is a publication that lists by county all agency activities and actions taking place in the state of Ohio. Written and oral comments received as part of the official record are reviewed by Ohio EPA prior to the director making the final decision. To be included in the official record, written comments must be received by Ohio EPA by the close of business on December 24th, 2014. Comments received after this date may be considered as time and circumstances allow, but they will not be part of the official record for this hearing. Written comments can be filed with us today or be submitted to Edward Anye, Site Coordinator, Ohio EPA Northwest District Office, 347 North Dunbridge Road, Bowling Green, Ohio, 43401. This address is also on the agenda for the hearing and is in the presentation handout as well. Comments can be faxed to area code 419-352-8468, and they may also be emailed to edward.anye@epa.ohio.gov. And again, this information is in the presentation handout. All written comments received this evening are sent to Ohio EPA, and all verbal comments given this evening will receive the same consideration. If you refer to exhibits during your testimony, please submit them this evening to ensure the accuracy of your testimony. And again, we have a court reporter here to make a transcript of tonight's proceedings. Questions and comments made at the public hearing will be responded to in a document known as a response to comments. The director, after considering recommendations of program staff and comments presented by the public, will determine whether to accept the preferred plan. The director's final decision and information about how to obtain access to the response to comments will be sent to the applicant and all who have submitted comments this evening. Final actions of the director are appealable to the Environmental Review Appeals Commission, also known as ERAC. This board is separate from Ohio EPA and reviews cases in accordance with Ohio's environmental rules and laws. Any ERAC decision can be appealed to the Franklin County Court of Appeals, and any order of the Court of Appeals is appealable to the Supreme Court of Ohio. Each individual may testify only once and speak for 5 minutes, so I ask that you use your time wisely and that you are respectful to others providing their comments and questions. There is no cross-examination of the speaker or of Ohio EPA representatives in public hearings of this type. Ohio EPA's public hearings afford citizens an opportunity to provide input. The hearing officer or an Ohio EPA representative may ask clarifying questions of speakers to ensure the record is as complete and accurate as possible. If you have a question that was not responded to during the Q&A, please ask it on the record, and the agency will respond in the response to comments document. So with that, we will receive testimony. I'll just ask you to raise your hands, and as I call on you, please stand, please give your name, and please spell it for the record before you proceed with your testimony. So please, who would like to testify this evening? Yes, sir.
Michael Gibson, hydrogeologist with Egan & Associates out of Columbus, Ohio. I'm a consultant for the Village of Lexington. Reading the preferred plan, Groundwater contamination presently exists above acceptable levels on village-owned property east of Plymouth Street. Can the agency please explain why no covenants are anticipated for or requested for that area? Secondly, there are existing groundwater concentrations adjacent to residential properties south of the southeast corner of the Hamilton Standard property that exceed remediation levels presented in the plan, therefore suggesting that there's potential that vapor concentrations could exceed acceptable standards for indoor air. We feel that the preferred plan needs to address the potential and verify the agency's assumption, not within the plan obviously, but it needs to be verified, the agency's assumption that there is not unacceptable vapor concentrations to adjacent residential properties. As I understand it, the ecological risk assessment, the screening level ecological risk assessment prepared in the 2006 timeframe has not been revised. New risk assumptions have been built into the human health risk assessments based on revised US EPA toxicity characteristics for things such as TCE. The record shows, contrary to one of the answers presented by the agency during the Q&A period, that TCE and PC concentrations both have reached the river repeatedly over time with concentrations in the high single-digit range. And dovetailing that with the SLERA, the risk assessment, has there been a revision of the assumptions made in 2006 to current standards? As with human health, where things have gotten more stringent, you might expect that that would happen also for the ecological assessment. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to give testimony this evening? Yes,
I will.
sir. Can you please state your name and spell it for the record?
Sure. John Studeman, John. Studeman is Studenmund. I'm a local resident, and in all due respect to the Ohio EPA, I do not think the plan is in the best interest of the village of Lexington residents. We've had remedial work for over 13 years, and there's been very little evidence that what remediation work has done anything to contain the groundwater contamination. There's been very little information or evidence that anywhere the level of groundwater contamination is at standard and acceptable levels. There's been zero talk about an alternative such as the soil excavation and pump and treat method. I believe the plan even admits that the soil excavation is the only remedial alternative that would be successful in providing long-term effectiveness. But all I've heard out of the speakers tonight is a cost concern for UTC, which I think is a shame. I think that the residents of the village of Lexington deserve more credit as opposed to the cost concern of UTC. The green space reference, the plan is inaccurate. There's no structure there. There's a concrete slab for the 14th time. It's disappointing that the plan doesn't recognize what's on the property. It's hard to miss when you drive by the street. If there is going to be green space, there needs to be a plan for the concrete slab, not just reference green space. It's clear to me that this plume and contamination in this area is not going away. However, you want people here tonight to believe that over the next 9-10 years it's going to diminish and everything's going to be fine. I have a hard time understanding that. We've been here 13 years, you've been here, somebody's been here 13 years trying to fix a problem, and nothing is to acceptable levels. So I would like some explanation as to why we can assume that in 10 years from now, things are going to be better. That's all I have, thanks.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to testify this evening? Anyone? Yes, sir.
Kim Little.
Can you please spell your name?
K-I-M, L-I-T-T-L-E. In approximately 97, which the EPA moved to the east side of Plymouth Street and started drilling holes, collecting data. And once they hit positive results, there was no indication to go inside the buildings to find out about the air. I understand from lawsuits or working with attorneys from the owners, this was not done until 2011 or 12. This group has subjected employees and people to 28,000 hours in contaminated air because of your procedure. 2005, they opened a daycare center, giving those infant little babies contaminated air to breathe in. I estimate that by the time they got old enough to go to school, they're breathing 16,000 hours of contaminated air. Not once in any of these reports have I seen any indication that you looked into people with cancer or deaths. I can tell you there's been 11 people with cancer right there. 7 of them are dead. This site has to be cleaned up. I don't think you guys really realize how toxic a product you've got here and what it's doing to the people. You've gone in the air mitigation system and you've not corrected one crack, one hole, one penetration in the wall with any type of a sealant. And then returned for an indoor air. I understand somebody climbed on the roof and said, oh, the vent stacks are collecting nice samples. No indication to what is happening inside the building. People have a right to be able to work and live in an environment safe. And you've not done that. The one example I can give you, there's 7 people that worked on one floor. One floor over here in the building. 4 had cancer, 2 are dead. And you talk about 1 in 100,000 potential people with cancer, I think you need to really address your findings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Would anybody else like to testify this evening? Anyone? More chance? Okay. Before we wrap up, I do want to say, it was pointed out to me that we had a slide that indicated that the public comment period ran through January 24th, and I had said December 24th. We could certainly look at extending that public comment period. I apologize for the discrepancy there. If you would like us to consider extending the public comment period, please send an email to Edward at the address that we've given. We can certainly consider doing that, because we do have the holidays coming up and everything. So I apologize for that discrepancy. And with that, seeing that there are no further requests to provide testimony, I'll remind everybody that we are still receiving written comments. They can be mailed or emailed or faxed. The information is on the agenda and on the presentation handouts. I want to thank you for attending this evening. I want to thank you for participating in the agency's decision-making process, and thank you very much for your cooperation. Yes, sir.
I believe Mr. Little had another.
Yes. In your data here, the EPA has been on site since '87. You've given everybody in this room, what, 6 days, 8 days to respond and a holiday weekend? That's really fair.
Again, we will just send us a request to extend that public comment period, please. You have our contact information. I apologize for that discrepancy. Again, I want to thank you for coming out this evening and for participating in the agency's decision-making process. The time is now 7:29 p.m. and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Let me take